Bonjour, today we're learning the subjunctive. This is a very difficult thing to master, but it's probably the last major grammar topic that we have this year. So as long as you can bear with me, I promise the end is in sight. So today we're introducing the subjunctive and then talking about a specific portion of when we use the subjunctive called impersonal expressions. So today we're going to talk about what the subjunctive and indicative moods are, a lot of grammar vocabulary, what are impersonal expressions, and then how to conjugate the subjunctive in the present tense. So that's it. It's a deceptively simple lesson, but if you keep an open mind about everything I'm saying, I promise it'll be a little bit easier. So to start off, what do I mean when I say mood? And what's the difference between a mood and a tense? I'm not talking about all of a sudden the verbs got crabby and we're all moody or something. This is a technical grammar term, I swear. A tense describes when something happened. So for example, passé composé, imparfait, présent, futur proche, and futur simple. These all describe when something happened. They're very specific, whether it happened in the past, present, or future, and then more specifically, whether it's in the immediate future or the more distant future. A mood describes a speaker's connection to or relationship with something that happened. So it's a little bit more abstract, a little bit more difficult to pinpoint on a timeline. There are 4 moods: indicative, subjunctive, conditional, and imperative. So surprise, we've already learned one of these, the conditional. I know I called it a tense. I'm sorry for that, but it had to happen just to make this a little bit easier to get through. So the conditional we learned, so that fits our example of what a mood is, right? The conditional doesn't necessarily tell us when it happened. It's just saying what you would do if you could. So it's more your connection to or relationship with something that might happen or has happened or will happen. Other than that, everything else we've learned so far is the indicative mood. The indicative mood discusses facts and objective statements. And then the subjunctive mood, a new one for today, discusses subjective attitudes, opinions, uncertain or hypothetical actions. So indicative mood, it's very clear what happened. I woke up at 5 a.m. I worked out. I brushed my teeth, right? These are all facts. Subjunctive would be more things like, I think everyone should study French, right? That's my own subjective opinion. There's no fact to back that up. Maybe I cite somebody else's fact, but me saying it is not a fact. So that would be in the new thing that we're learning called the subjunctive. And one time where we always use a subjunctive are with something called impersonal expressions. An impersonal expression gives an opinion without a specific person in mind. That's why it's impersonal. It's not directed advice. And these are all going to be followed by the word que, which we should remember from our last video means that or which. And there are 2 ways we can use these impersonal expressions in a sentence. The first is to leave que and then add a subject and verb conjugated in the subjunctive. And then the second way is to replace que with de and add an infinitive at the end. And here are a lot of impersonal expressions, a lot of good vocabulary. So for example, il est bon que, it is good that. Il est dommage que, it is a shame that. Il est essentiel que, it is essential that. Il est important que, it is important that. Il est indispensable que, it is essential that. So we can see there's 2 ways to say that. Il est nécessaire que, it is necessary that. Il est possible que, it is possible that. Il faut que, one must, or it is necessary that. And il vaut mieux que, it is better that. So notice that these all have que at the end, and these are all kind of impersonal. It is good that, or it's a shame that, it's essential that. I'm not saying anything like you should do this. It is important that you do this, okay? These are all just general opinions that I might have. And so we learned that you need to conjugate the subjunctive whenever you're using a verb that follows these impersonal expressions. So how do we do that? You start off, step 1, conjugate whatever infinitive you want for the IL form in the present tense. So for example, if we're trying to say il faut que je parle, it's necessary that I speak. You would take parler, and we're conjugating it for the IL form, which is parle with the ENT ending. Step 2, cross out the ENT ending, and then we add the subjunctive endings. This might be our last set of endings that we need, so don't get too emotional, just jot these down. For je, you add an e at the end. For tu, you add an es. For il or el, you add an e. For nu, you add ions. For vous, you add iez. And for il, el, you add ent. So the weird thing about the subjunctive is that a lot of the time it will look very similar to how it would have in the present tense anyway. You can see that our boot verbs, je, tu, il, and then il, all look the same in the subjunctive as they would in the present, and then nu and vous look strangely like the imparfait, because we have the imparfait ending here. So this is a deceptive tense because sometimes it's easy to forget, because you can maybe get away sometimes with having it in the present tense, but you still want to be very careful, okay? So make sure that you have this process written down in your notes, the impersonal expressions, and get excited. This is our first of 4 lessons about the subjunctive, so it's going to be a good time. Make sure that you have these in your notes so that you're ready for class.